From the basement of La Penta, this is WICR.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe Archino. And look, there are 6 days until the NBA season begins, basically. There is no better time to kind of do a little bit of looking ahead at what is going to happen, predictions, the whole thing, the NBA GM survey coming out the other day. And it's always one of those things that I really enjoy looking at because, look, there are a lot of smart people in the NBA. There's a lot of smart GMs. There's a lot of smart people running these teams now. And you could kind of see, based on where they go with their preseason predictions, this is generally what happens. They know where this league is, where the league is going, and I don't think that any of the results are really too big of a surprise. Obviously, the biggest thing everybody wants to know is who did they pick to win this year's 2015-16 NBA championship, and I don't think it's that big of a surprise that 53.6% of the GMs picked the Cavaliers, 96.6% picked the Cavs to win the Eastern Conference. So I think that you look at that dynamic right there, and half of it has to be you look at the road Cleveland has to take to win the title. Obviously, are there a lot of Western Conference teams that when you stack them up from a roster perspective have a better collective roster than the Cavaliers? Probably, but the road you have to travel, just the way that you get beat up in the Western Conference Finals, that is a grueling road that the Cavs just don't have to take. You look at the Cavs and what they did. They didn't even have Kyrie Irving for their last 2 series. They didn't have Kyrie against the Bulls. They didn't have Kyrie against the Hawks. They sweep the Hawks. They relatively get past the Bulls without too much trouble. That right there shows you the gigantic dynamic and leap of difference there is between the West and the East. But I think still, you look at the way things unfolded for the Cavs, all that I always keep on saying is there's so many parallels between LeBron's first year in Miami and LeBron's first year in Cleveland. You look at the way that they ended, it's the same thing. You know, the bittersweet taste of loss in the finals, both times for LeBron. And it was interesting, on the Cavs media day, what he said was when the Heat lost that title and they came out opening night the next year, they came out and they played angry. They came out and they had a focus that they just were playing with an edge to them. And I think that's something that you're going to see again. Now, it's a little bit different here with this Cavaliers team because they're starting the season not in the best position in terms of injuries. Tristan Thompson still has his holdout situation, but LeBron is a little bit dinged up to start the season. Kyrie Irving isn't going to be ready to go for the start. Kevin Love should be ready to go, and he's seen a couple minutes in the preseason as well, so he should be good to go, but that is not the best situation to be starting it into. But I think the Cavaliers, the biggest thing that last season was about meshing and building the identity. And after they made the trade and they brought in Timothy Mozgov and J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, they found that the identity that they were looking for, and they proved who they could be. They were unsurpassable as the best team in the Eastern Conference. And again, I really think it's the same exact story this year. Atlanta, again, what they did last year was remarkable, but you saw what happened. When it came down to a playoff situation, the Cavaliers swept them. That's just the way it is. I think Atlanta is going to be the same way this year. They're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. They're always going to play tough defense. They're always going to play smart. But when it comes down to the games that matter, there's a team that wins, and it's the team that has LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. That is the biggest thing I think you've got to watch out for this year, the continued growth of Kyrie Irving. I said last year, I don't think I've ever seen a player who had better situational awareness playing alongside LeBron James than Kyrie Irving. I don't think I've ever seen a better teammate play with LeBron than I did with Kyrie Irving. And I know Dwayne Wade is one of the best of all time, one of the best that there will ever be. But again, you always had to look at Dwayne Wade was always hobbled a little bit. I never felt he was at 100% health playing with LeBron. He gutted out so many playoff games. He was tremendous. But Kyrie, it's a little bit similar in the same fact because Kyrie has had his issues staying healthy. But again, you look at that game 1 against the Warriors in the NBA Finals, Kyrie is healthy for that series. it has a different outcome. I don't think that there's any question about it. But I think the dynamic of the relationship between the two of them is going to be monumental, because after the season ended, LeBron, there was a lot of people saying LeBron's kind of looking to be a 22-8-8 guy this season. He knows that with his age right now and with everything, all the minutes that he's played, he's got to take it down a little bit. And Kyrie is absolutely capable of really stepping up and getting that extra production out of him. The thing I like the most about Kyrie is his versatility, his ability to create shots anywhere on the court, his ability to score at the rim, his ability to make plays everywhere on the defensive side. And that was the big knock on Kyrie before LeBron came, was he wasn't a good defender, he didn't buy in on defense. But let me tell you, I mean, you watched when LeBron got there, the difference maker that Kyrie was on the defensive side of the basketball. I mean, there were so many moments in every single game where he was a constant pressure. Even in the game against the Warriors, you look at that block he made on Stephen Curry. I mean, it's still one of the big highlights of the NBA Finals. Difference maker on both sides of the floor. And I think the Cavaliers, look, I have them penciled in right now. I think they will win the NBA championship, like LeBron did in year 2 with Miami. Now, is this right? The thing you do have to look at and separate the two of them, though, is Miami came back and they filled out that roster beautifully in the offseason for the Heat. They knew that they had a lot of holes, and that's why one of the reasons they lost to the Mavs, other than LeBron just disappearing. But I don't think Cleveland did as good a job filling out the roster in the offseason like the Heat did. The Heat brought in Shane Battier. The Heat drafted Norris Cole. They did whatever they had to do. They meshed those veterans who knew how to play and knew what their role had to be. And when the time came down to it, they filled their roles like Shane Battier did, like Mike Miller did. Norris Cole was tremendous for such a young player. And I just don't know if Cleveland has done that. Now, they brought in some guys. I think bringing back a guy like Mo Williams is really nice, having a change of pace type point guard like that, a guy who's been there before, a guy who's just a nice, solid basketball player. And I think that's little moves like that are nice. But again, all the production on this team, it's all going to revolve around the twin-headed tower, LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. Obviously, Kevin Love is going to have a bigger role. He will be more integral to the offense. I think that was the biggest thing. And for David Blatt, I'm glad that he was able to survive the storm, because it was such a difficult position. Eric Spoelstra was in the same situation. But when it comes down to it, David Blatt knows what he's doing. David Blatt is a very good basketball coach. I have the faith that he's going to fit Kevin Love into this team and figure out what to do. And it helps him that right now the Eastern Conference is just down. But right now, the Cavaliers, 53.6% of the GMs saying they're picking them to win the title. I'm with them. I've thought from the second the finals ended, I thought this is deja vu all over again. We're going to see what we saw in Miami. LeBron year 2, he brings the band back and they get the job done. Now, the MVP is the next one, which is interesting. Who people think is going to win the MVP. At the end of the day, it seems like a lot of people, the safe bet is always to go with LeBron James, and I don't know how you couldn't. The only thing that might knock picking LeBron as MVP or predicting him as MVP this year is, like I said before, there were reports out there that because LeBron knows one of the things you've always got to take into consideration with LeBron is he's very progressive with the way that he trains in the offseason, with the way that he takes care of his body. He's always a guy who's looking ahead, and I think that's one of the reasons why this report came out, that he wants to be a 22-8-8 guy, because he knows he can't be the same guy going out there every single night with the amount of minutes that he's played and the teams that he has carried for so many years in this league. He's got a lot of miles on his tires, and if he doesn't preserve his body the right way, I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to play at that high elite all-star level. Obviously, he's always going to be the best player until he hangs up the cape, but to stay at that level, I think he's got to tone it down a little bit. Not the entire season, but I think the first half of the season, being a 22-8-8 type guy, I think that's the perfect thing. And then once the second half starts, you turn back on the Jets and you just go full steam ahead. But right now, will that affect LeBron if that's the plan for the MVP race? I don't know. I think winning is all that matters sometimes when it comes down to it. Stats are nice, but again, there's a reason Carmelo Anthony is putting up nice stats and the Knicks aren't winning ball games, and why LeBron James is not taking as many shots and he's winning a lot more ball games. Stats are not the be-all, end-all. I think winning at the end of the day, flash with winning is the biggest thing. I think if you've got a guy like who's putting up the stats, who's not always putting up the biggest stats, but he's got some flash to his game, and his team is always winning, well, that's a combination right there. But if I had to make the pick for MVP, have to go with LeBron James. Picking the Cavs to win the title, picking LeBron to win the MVP, no big surprises here, but that's going to do it for this segment. We'll be back in a little while.